Welcome, everyone, to the Power of Integrity podcast, where leadership aligns with principles. I'm Ralph Adamo, and today we have a wonderful guest, Steve Kim, Executive Director of Project Kinship. Steve's story is really pretty interesting. His organization is extremely interesting and doing great work here. Steve Kim, welcome.
Thank you, Ralph. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
It's good to see you. It's good to be seen. Well,
Thank
I
you.
would love for our audience to learn more about Project Kinship. I would love for you to tell a little bit about your personal and professional journey. It's led to where you are today, but all the things that were interesting mile markers along the way. If you could share, that would be great for our audience to hear a little bit about you and, of course, about the organization.
Again, thank you so much, Ralph, and thank you to your audience who it's taking time to listen to this as well. My journey starts when I was a kid, and I didn't realize what trauma looked like as a kid. As a kid, it's not like when you're young, you're like, "Hey, I've been traumatized." It's just, "Oh, that didn't feel right." And I remember elementary school, I was this chubby Asian kid with a bowl haircut, and I had bright orange shorts on, and I would get beat up every single day. I mean, literally every single day I get beat up in the neighborhood I grew up in, and experienced a lot of challenges and trauma. Experienced a lot of racism as well. They would break our family's windows, and just a lot of bad stuff happened. But as a kid, um, it was difficult, but you don't really understand it. So what happened is I had a lot of anger, and I didn't know what to deal with my anger, and I didn't have the words to articulate how I felt. We know now that as kids, there's a significance on nurturing the kid. When something bad happens to you, it's important for somebody, a parent, a caretaker, a peer, to come around you to help nurture you, to let you know that the world is okay. But I didn't grow up like that, and so I ended up getting into a lot of trouble because I was angry. And long story short, my story is I ended up in juvenile hall, and just ended up on the streets. And my junior year, my mom was like, "This kid needs to go to church." So she took me to this church and dropped me off in the middle of this church. And I think when the youth kids saw me, they saw me as a church project, and they were like, "We need to help this kid out." And they were showing me so much love, and I experienced this kindness, and I started hanging out with these church kids. And what happened is they began to influence me, and when they graduated high school, they started going to all these colleges. They started going to, UCI, UCLA, USC, blah, blah, blah. And I had no idea what that was. I was like, I want to go to UCI too. And they're like, did you take the SATs? And I was like, what is that? Is that Saturday detention class? And they were like laughing at me, like, what's wrong with this guy? Anyways, long story short, I went to junior college, transferred to UCI, and that was like my dream come true. But there was still something that was kind of missing for me, and I missed just some of my old friends. And I had a group of friends I grew up with, and they ended up selling drugs, and they ended up being on the streets. And I tried to help them out, but they influenced me. And what happened is I tried methamphetamines for the first time. Within 2 years, I ended up homeless and on the streets on Beach Boulevard in Anaheim. It's a kind of rough area for Orange County, and just was going through it. And I realized that I had not dealt with my anger, my pain, and my shame, and I still had it even at those UCI days. And what drugs did for me is help me forget about those things that were staying in parts of my mind and my body and my heart. So what ended up happening is, you do drugs, you're going to end up in jail. So I ended up in jail, and had a baby at that time. And things were so bad that my wife and I were like, what should we name her? And we were like, well, let's just name her Hope, because we really don't have any hope. And we have our daughter. And I remember the last time I was arrested, my wife came to visit me with my daughter. And when she came, in jail, you can't really touch people. And so from behind the glass, I remember not being able to touch my daughter, and my heart started to break. So, anyways, I go back, and I say this prayer. I say, God, if you could help me out, that would be cool. My life's destroyed. And long story short, from there, ended up going to rehab at the Salvation Army. Had an opportunity to change my life around, get sober, and my journey started there and rebuilding my life. Um, Came out of Salvation Army, couldn't find a job at that moment, and so we just slowly started building our life. Um, to make a long story short, there's a counselor at UCI that I reached out to that met with me, and she gave me an opportunity to go back to school. So I go into UCI to meet with her, and at that time I was really rough around the edges. So she's like, "Can I help you?" I go, "I used to go to UCI." She goes, "I don't think so." So she lets me in. We're talking, and from there she goes, "I'm gonna get back to you." And about 2 weeks later, I get this letter in the mail saying that based on your recent accomplishments, we're gonna let you come back to UCI. At that time, it was a big, significant moment in my life because I really couldn't find a job, trying to figure out how to rebuild my life, and I get this opportunity to go back to school. So I go back to UCI and do well, graduate. I still couldn't get a job because I had one record at that time. And then from there, I went to USC and I got my master's in social work. And that's where things started to change. Opportunities started coming, doors started opening up. And it was a big moment in my life because people started coming around, supporting, I started meeting people. And then from there, I met a lady named Heidi Cisneros in the Orange County Department of Ed, and she gave me an opportunity to go back to work. So I go to Orange County Department of Ed. I started working with kids in juvenile hall at the access school sites. And then from there, about 15 years later, I get this opportunity to start Project Kinship. And Project Kinship is birthed through Homeboy Industries and the heartbeat of how they serve and care and have compassion for people. And so in 2014, had the opportunities that started with 2 people in Orange County. And today we're at 150 people, 9%, 90% people of color, 40% formerly incarcerated. And we're in 40 schools throughout Orange County, every unit in juvenile hall. And in both the county jails 24/7. So everybody who comes out of county jail, we get to help them and connect them with resources. So that's my long-winded story of a little bit about my background.
Wow, what a journey. And so, Steve, that's a wonderful story and a journey. And I did not have the depth of knowledge about how much childhood was challenging and how growing up and then incarceration yourself and how you turned that into a positive after that world, because getting into drugs could be a real slippery slope, especially methamphetamine. Yes, you were on the streets, but how was it? And I'm just curious, you pulled yourself up by the bootstraps. Was it the fact that you were married, the fact you were having a baby? What was that factor that changed things for you?
Yeah, I think for me, I had never experienced that type of an addiction, and I was using methamphetamines probably for 2 years straight every single day. And I didn't know how to get off of it. And I was not only physically addicted, but it really, looking back now, was something that numbed all of my pain all the way from childhood. And how I got off of it was I had to have a lot of people come around me, and I had to realize that people do care for me, and I had a lot of people come around and walk with me on that journey. And so, I went to jail, seeing my daughter behind the glass. It broke my heart, and I began to look at the mirror at my own life to say, you know, um, I had to see myself again. And I think how people see themselves again is through other people. And during a time where I felt like I didn't deserve any love or compassion, people came around me and said, "See, we got you." And once I began to receive that love, it began to change something in me. And I began to think like, I can't live in the past. I can't, I can only move forward. And I want to move forward in the way that's true and authentic. And I want to be the type of person that I feel like I can be. And so that was a core of what changed my heart. Of course, my daughter Hope, she was just a baby at that time, and not being able to touch her through the glass, it changed something in me. So, once I got out of jail, going to rehab, I had to learn things, and I had to, just push forward. It wasn't easy, but it began to change me. I learned how to work. I had a strong work ethic at the Salvation Army. Began to learn life skills. Began to learn language. And so, when you're angry, you can't punch walls. You got to articulate yourself. Say, Ralph, I'm feeling angry today. What you did yesterday really hurt my feelings. I didn't grow up talking about things like that. I didn't grow up telling people like, Ralph, you hurt my feelings. It was, it was a different
Right.
response. But I've had to learn that, because you can't go around punching people. You're gonna go to jail, and so it really was about healing, and healing happens quick, but it's also a long journey. And so, like I was mentioning, when I couldn't find a job, and when I went to got a chance to go to UCI, Carol Stanley was a counselor who took a chance on me and talked to the dean and got me back in. And so, all those things gave me opportunity. And as life got better, one thing at a time, like you don't want to lose those things. And so with each goal, once you accomplish it, you're like, hey, I graduated. I got back into UCI after getting kicked out for being on drugs. I got back into UCI. Let's finish this. Awesome. That felt good. Well, I can't find a job, so I'll go to USC, graduate with a master's degree. That felt good. Oh my gosh, the Orange County Department gave me a chance to work. That felt good, and all this stuff. And, you're building your life up. And I think that progression is what helped me. But through all of that, what I know now is that the healing has helped me. We say that people can always change, but once you heal, you transform, and once a person transforms, that's permanent.
Yeah, that's powerful, profound. Once we heal, we transform, and once we transform, it's permanent. Wow. I'm not going to forget that anytime soon. Tell me something. Turning our attention to the topic of the podcast, when you think about the word integrity, Steve, what does integrity mean to you?
Well, I feel like integrity. C.S. Lewis, I think, mentioned that integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. And so I think that's important. You know, I also think integrity is not lying to yourself. When everything fades, when, nobody is watching, when it's just you and yourself, you got to be able to really sit in that moment and embrace and love that person you are to yourself. And so, I'm a person of faith. And so for me, it's, I'm so far from perfect, but I'm trying to continue to heal. And I think about that. I think about all the grace and compassion people and God has placed in my life that it challenges me to have integrity, not only when no one's watching, but even just to myself. I don't want to self deceive myself on the person that I want to be. For me, that's the way I look at integrity.
Yeah, that's big. It comes with one of those synonyms for me with how you're describing it is, and it's spoken many times on this show, is authenticity. Are
Mhm.
we being authentic with ourselves and in alignment? Are we being in aligned with ourselves? And when no one's looking and when we're by ourselves, is there true alignment? And that's what I think you're echoing there.
Yeah, I think for I'm learning for me, um, it brings true peace and it brings true freedom. And so, it's a very high bar to reach, right? Like, so what I've learned is I've kind of thrown away in the bar, and I'm thinking just in the present moment, like today in our conversation, when I leave here, I'm always pushing myself, Steve, be present, enjoy this day. I have this guy that texts me every single morning, and he's got so much to complain about, and he texts me every single morning. He's done 30 years in prison. He's out, building his life up. Every morning he sends me, he says, have a great day. Thank God you're on the wake up list. Live with integrity, live with compassion. I was like, okay. So, I get these gifts every morning that people remind me. And it's just a really cool thing.
That's beautiful. Yes, I think that which we emphasize begins to multiply. And if we can emphasize the
That's right.
positive, right? Yeah, it
That's right.
crowds out all that other negativity. Well,
Yeah.
tell me something. Can you share a moment with our audience where the principle of integrity played a key role in your professional or personal journey?
I think for me, the way Project Kinship runs, it's on culture, and so it's not easy in many ways because we went from 2 to 150 people. We have folks who've never had jobs coming in, they're employed, and at 150 people, I'm not a strong business person, but I've had to learn, like, you need operations, you need infrastructure, you need HR, you need all these things. And I feel like every day when people come in, we have the tests of running on integrity. And our integrity is, how do you treat people? How do you hold people? How do you walk with people in a workplace? How do you practice servant leadership? And so it's always being tested, because there's parts of me where I want to respond differently because I'm so frustrated and I'm so angry, and you did that again, or like I can't, like, and I want to take these shortcuts. But if you want to lead with servant leadership, there are no shortcuts, because the shortcuts become setbacks. And so, for me, when people come in, every day we have these challenges. And so I think for me, one thing was COVID. When COVID came, it really challenged us as an organization, challenged me as a leader. And there was just some decisions we had to make on, how do we move here? Do we take shortcuts? Do we close our doors? But we stayed true to our mission, and we um, listened to our community, listened to our team, and we had to make a decision on integrity, on keeping our doors open and continuing to follow the fine line of doing things super clean, kosher, and serve the community. And so that was a very difficult time for us. We had people passing away. We had, COVID was tough for all of us. But when I think about integrity, we came together as an organization and said, let's lock arms and keep to the mission of what Project Kinship is. Let's keep our doors open. We have to follow the rules of the protocols that are set. Let's follow those, and let's serve people. But I remember that being a very difficult conversation with us, because you know many don't know this. I feel like we almost closed our doors, but we stayed true to our mission and our service with each other.
Yes. Well, tell me something. On the opposite side of integrity, you've probably encountered a situation somewhere, or an event, or a group or people or an individual in which that situation or that individual or group of individuals lacked integrity. And I'm curious if you could share a little bit about one of those events in your life where the counterparty lacked integrity, and how did you respond to it, and what transpired?
I will say that I'm not trained as a business person. And what I've seen in business is different than how I've been trained. And so I think over the years, I've seen just decisions that are made, and relationships um, that was challenged due to decisions other people have made in business. And it really threw me off because, I thought, that didn't seem right. That I don't know, maybe people who've done business have felt, being backstabbed, or decisions that have been made, or being shorted. And for me, in those situations, as the organization grew, it really surprised me. And in many ways, it broke my heart, because I said, wow, I don't really operate like that. But it was a learning lesson. But what I realized is, for me, in every difficult situation, in some business situations where I felt like that didn't seem right, um, it gave me opportunity to stay true to my integrity, my values, and the healing and the person that I've become. And I will say that it was nearly impossible to go back to a response I would have done 20 years ago. I'm not the same person because of the healing journey I've been on. And I feel like, you know, as individuals encounter that in relationships, in life, in business, it's important to hold your own values and hold the line of who you are. And I feel like that, in the long run, ultimately pays off. And so for me, I wanted to go back and I wanted to respond in ways that were unhealthy, or like, revengeful. But it just I couldn't do it. And for me, I think they were great, learn lessons to grow, but also to make decisions on staying true to who I am as a person. And I think for me that was a very interesting journey over the last decade.
Yeah, you certainly have faced down a number of obstacles and challenges. Not many of us, especially in our audience, that have faced the similar kinds of challenges, from drug addiction to incarceration. That had to be really powerful in terms of how difficult it was and how transformative in the end it has been for you. I mean, that comes right through the screen to me while we're talking. I'm curious. You've learned probably a lot of things, not just about yourself, but about life. And we have sometimes a younger audience that could use some of those insights. And so, if there were that list of tips, a few things that you would say to the younger audience who's starting out in their professional journey and their in their adult personal journey, what are some of those insights and tips you might share with that group of folks?
Yeah, I would say I'm learning not to sweat the small stuff. You know, as we get older, we realize life is so short, and we want to focus on things that are positive, healing, and bring us joy. And what I realized is I've spent so much time focusing on these things that I really could have put aside. Um, that's what I think about these days. And as I look back, one of the most important things is you always have to remember your worth, because when you go through life, there's so many challenges. There's obviously great times in life, but it's impossible to avoid challenges. And I think in those times, people have to remember their worth, that all of us are sacred, that all of us hold tremendous value, that our external circumstances shouldn't define who we are internally. And I feel like as we remember those things, it helps us to continue to move forward. And so I think you always have to remember your sacredness and your worth. As you remember that, the game changes. It's like, bring it on. Whatever comes my way, it's not going to change who I am. And I think that's the name of the game. We're always returning people to themselves. So young people, you are the future. You are taking over, what we've done so far, and you get to live your own journey. And it's important in that journey to remember your sacredness and your worth, and to be around people who care for you deeply. And the journey is always much more beautiful when you're walking with folks who care for you.
Wow. Yeah, the word sacred and sacredness, and to always remember that about ourselves.
Mhm.
Steve, this has been a wonderful conversation. We're here with Steve Kim, Project Kinship, helping folks in many ways here in Orange County. Steve, as we kind of round the corner here and come close to wrapping up our show, if folks want to get in touch with you, how does our audience do that? What's the best way?
Yeah, we're here in Orange County, and so I always send folks to our Instagram. Give us a like. Team tells me to say that, and so that would be appreciated. We have a www.projectkinship.org. And then my email is steven@projectkinship.org. Please reach out. We're here for you, and we'd love to see you and connect with you.
Wonderful. Well, this has been the Power of Integrity podcast, where leadership aligns with principles. I've been here with Steve Kim from Project Kinship. Steve, it's been a delight. Thank you so much for this conversation. It was very revealing. It was very honest. It was very clear, and it was raw in many ways. And that was what made it a perfect show today. I really appreciate you being so honest with our audience and exemplifying integrity in every word you spoke today.
Thank you, Ralph. Appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Yes, I really appreciate you.
The information presented in this program is provided for informational purposes only. The information is believed to be reliable, but no guarantee of accuracy is made or implied. Expressions of opinions are as of this date and are subject to change without notice. The information in this material is not intended as tax or legal advice. Please consult a legal or tax professional if investing involves risks, including possible loss of capital. Ralph Adamo is registered with the securities and are offered through Kovac Securities Inc., member FINRA, SIPC, 6451 North Federal Highway, Suite 1201, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, 33308. Telephone number 954-782-4771. Investment advisory services are offered through Kovac Advisors Inc. Integrity Wealth Management is not affiliated with Kovac Securities Inc. or Kovac Advisors Inc.